Greetings, everyone. I'm Jeff Rhodes, half of the team of Crossroads Consulting, where we help businesses outsource, grow, reduce costs, and protect their assets. Continuing along with our Tales from the HR Crypt with Matt Opprecht, senior, very tenured HR professional. This case is titled Don't Fear the Reaper, Case of Don't Fear the Reaper. Now, this one's interesting because it does involve Family Leave Act and kind of what happens to an employee who takes time off, comes back. They're kind of different when they come back. So, yeah, this is kind of interesting, and it's definitely delicate when you look at Family Leave Act. It's a complex law to begin with, and when you find employees that oftentimes go off on family leave, they may not come back as they were when they left. I'll leave it at that. Case of the Don't Fear the Reaper. Enjoy. The last one we have here, the last case, this is Case of Don't Fear the Reaper. I love these titles,
Yes.
Matt, so I'm intrigued by this one.
Okay, this one, I love this one because it really kind of gets to the heart of why I love doing what I do. Um, Especially, with Source, because we work with a lot of small clients. I mean, you're talking about clients 5, 10, 15, 20 people
Right.
that, they can't afford to bring in somebody, like with my background and experience, I'm unaffordable to these people. Okay. But my
Yeah.
role at Source makes me extremely affordable for them. And this is a great company. It's a small landscaping company located here in Georgia. Again, no names, but they have 12 employees. Okay, so it's not a huge business. They do some grading, they do some landscaping business out there. Nothing major. It's not a Fortune 500, but they engaged us for, they came to us initially. They had a question about an employee, and they didn't know what to do from an HR standpoint. So they called us up, and Gabrielle, our owner, said, "We'll talk to Matt, and he'll help you out." So I walked them through that issue, and they're like, "Oh, well, this is great. We could probably use human resources on a regular basis, even if it's nothing more than what they call it. Say, hey, we like it. It's like we love having you on retainer. If that's the way you want to look at it, that's great. Yeah, sure, I'm on
Right.
retainer. You're not going to use me all the time. It's like a fire station. I don't need the engines to roll past my house every day, but I kind of want them to show up, if there's a fire, and I know they're going to put it out. So in this instance, the employer had a problem employee who apparently his spouse worked in human resources as well. And he had some medical issues, and I walked him through the process of what they should do for this employee. FMLA is available. He's been there, long enough. He's got the hours. You can't pay him for it, but he does have the ability to have that time off. So he took the FMLA, came back, and then immediately upon return just started causing all kinds of problems. It was like he just didn't want to work anymore. He was telling other employees that, well, if he could find another job, he would. He doesn't care what the supervisors say, just all kinds of just negative attitude. And I told them, I said, look, if he's this big of a problem, you guys are so small, you don't need that. If he has told you that, he's going to go ahead and he's going to find another job anyway, go ahead and let him go. Make sure you have your documentation, which they did. I always advise document, everything that he said, everything that he's done that has been in direct violation of your policies. Make sure you have that. And they did. They had been keeping a pretty good record since before he left on FMLA. I said, so here's a good thing. You can't terminate him while he's on FMLA if you haven't already,
Right.
figured out a path. Now that he's back, I don't recommend that you terminate him immediately unless it becomes unbearable. So give him a chance. And they did. They gave him, a couple of months and said, it's not working out. So I said, great, let's go ahead and we'll do a termination. The employee's attitude was that, okay, well, you know what? I'm going to sue you. You're going to hear from my attorney. This is wrong. And two, I'm going to go to the EEOC and I'm going to win. And my wife is in HR, and so she knows all about this. He wrote a lengthy letter of, I don't know who advised you for an HR standpoint, but they don't know anything. I'm like, I'm going to save that email. So I talked to the client and I said, well, what do we do? I mean, should we, do we get I mean, we have an attorney, but, we don't want to have to use him because he's expensive. What can we do? We don't know anything about the EEOC. We don't know anything about dealing with this. What's the threat level? And I told him, I said, look, calm down. You have zero worry with the EEOC because EEOC statutes basically only apply to companies with more than 15 employees. You have 12.
Wow.
All right. You can't be touched. He wants to hit you with an ADA suit. You can't be touched. ADA does not apply because you only have 12 employees. You got to have at least 15 or more. So there's nothing here that you can be touched by. Not that I recommend, flagrant violations of any of these organizations, but you are in a good place. You don't need to run out and get an attorney. You don't need to, lawyer up, and you don't need to do any of these things that you have to worry about. All we need to do is simply respond to him if he does send anything up. If he says he gets an attorney, then at that point we would want to have your attorney respond, but he will not be able to come after you on the federal level because you just simply are too small for them to frankly care about. I'll put it that way. We found out he went out and tried to get an attorney. He went to the free people first, the ones that are, hey, yeah, we win the case or we don't charge you. And they're like, no, we don't want you. And so they set him up with this association of attorneys, the American Association of Attorneys, where you can go out and talk to some attorney that may take your case, and for retainer, sure. I mean, this guy works in a landscaping company. I'm sure he's got $10,000-$20,000 just to drop on an attorney in the hopes that he might be able to get some money from the case. He sent an email saying, well, I've been referred to the AAA and I'm, here we go. That was 12 months ago. Not heard a word since, ever. And I utilized this story because in my position in this particular case, I was able to help the employer understand that you have rights too. There's a lot of protections for employees. There's a lot of statutes. There's a lot of law that does that. But as an employer, you also have certain rights, and you can do things like this. I know a lot of employers look at the at will as, well, I can just fire anybody for any reason. Sure can. You just have to be able to defend it. In this case, you had a well-documented plan. You had a well-thought-out process. We talked about it. We worked together. When we did pull the trigger, you got nervous because you were getting threats from the employee who apparently had better HR counsel than you do, in his mind. This is my job to step in and say, you don't need to worry about these things. Don't worry about the stuff you don't need to worry about, okay? Worry about the stuff you do need to worry about, and that stuff, I will be here to guide you through.
Yeah, I think that's one of the most gratifying parts of what we do with companies, especially in the PEO realm. The business owners don't know anything about the rules, the laws, and they'll call you in a panic. And the greatest thing is just being able to provide them assurance that by being through this program, you're covered and we got your back.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to do anything. To see the look on their face, like, okay, great. This is exactly what I was hoping I was paying for.
Yeah. So,
that's exactly it.
The things that have impacted HR over the years, nothing has been more impactful than Google search. And I often tell employers, look, if you don't take HR seriously, do yourself a favor, go to Google, type in search how to sue my employer. You will be absolutely amazed at what comes up. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. Your employees have access to Google, right? Of course they do. So if you think that HR is not important, go to Google, search how to sue my employer for discrimination, how to sue my employer for a hostile workplace. It goes on and on and on. And you can also search what kind of money can I win on a sexual or discrimination suit.
Sure.
So this is what's triggering a lot of this employee stuff. Well, I got my attorney. Oh yeah, okay. So you're making $12 an hour. I'm sure you've got a New York attorney that's on retainer, right? But they act like an attorney because they've gone to Google and they've searched how to sue my employer.
Yeah, we have a client that in the beginning, been working with them for about 10 years now. In the beginning, they would just fire people, right? He's like, hey, it's at will. I said, well, yeah, sure. You have the right to fire them. They also have the right to sue you. So
Right.
doesn't it make sense to, put the practices in place to where you document, you think about it. Sure, if they're not any good for your company, fire them for a reason, not because you're just mad at them and you're insulting them and you're just saying you're fired, you're a loser. Just put a little bit of thought to it so it doesn't come back to bite you.
So
100% agree.
How important do you view performance evaluations, and do you find that a lot of employers don't really do much with performance reviews?
I find, depending on how they use them, I find them very valuable, and then in some cases they're a complete waste of time, and I'll kind of elaborate on that. I've got several of our clients from Source doing this, what I'm about to talk about. We all talk about when we bring on a new hire, we talk about onboarding and, hey, what about that 30, 60, 90-day period when they're ramping up? You want to make sure that they understand the business, that, that they are meeting their expectations. You're getting what you need from them. But I also incorporated into that, it's like, I would rather you do a performance review every 90 days, say quarterly, rather than the annual review. And the reason behind that is because if you go to somebody after a year and say, here's where you didn't meet our expectations 8 months ago, well, you can't fix that. It's too long of a time. And so I have basically incorporated with some of my clients, like, do a 30, 60, 90 day. And then at the end of that 90-day period, go back and do another one based on, hey, you know what? In the first 90 days, these two things slipped through the cracks, but these other things were fantastic. You exceeded expectations. You're going to move those two pieces over to your next 90 days. Let's focus on those, and let's focus on this. That way they're getting, real time, performance reviews as to what they can and can't do, or what they're succeeding or what they're not succeeding at. It opens the door of communication more to their direct report. I mean, obviously, in my opinion, any manager, any leader should always have that door open. If an employee has an issue or a question, or they're struggling, they need to step in and help them resolve. But by doing it every 90 days, these clients are really, they just love it. And every time I have to sit in on an employee review, it's great because hey, you did so well here, you did well here. With the understanding that not every time you get an evaluation, there's going to be a pay raise. We just went through that with a client, that, oh, well, I did really well on my 90 days. Do I get a raise? Like, no, not yet. Yeah. You can still do the annual raises. You may want to give a little bump after the first 90 days or maybe 6 months in, depending on what your agreements, state. But at the end of the year, then you have a clear record of this employee's progress. And, there shouldn't be any mystery to anybody on either side as to where the improvement needs to happen and where the improvement did happen and was great.
Right. Yeah, you hear more and more about how important communication is, especially with multiple generations in the workforce. Mm-hmm. And management needs to take the communication seriously, because there's some things that could be detrimental to the company, and they need to make some accommodations and changes if they're getting honest communication.
Yeah, I mean,
absolutely.
If we're working together, Matt, and you have to communicate to us too. You're going to communicate to the old timer much different than you're going to communicate to the young buck like me, right?
Oh, there we go.
I mean, just send me a text. I'm good with that, Matt. To him, you might need to sit down, So.
I just Googled age discrimination here. Okay, yeah.
So, well, listen, Matt, we certainly appreciate you sharing these cases with us. We feel they're very valuable. What is your website for Sourced?
It is www.getsourced.com.
All right.
The company is actually called Sourced, and I'll tell you why that we get hung up on that. When the company was started, there was no domain for Source. It was already taken. So they had to figure out something. So they put in the Get Sourced, and now everybody always refers to it as Get Sourced. And the owners are always like, we might as well just change the name of that.
Yeah, well, I called it Get Sourced, So.
That's totally fine. Totally fine.
Well, this whole concept of outsourcing and fractional this fractional that CFO, fractional HR is growing by leaps and bounds. Private equity is involved in services such as this because it makes all the sense in the world. You're getting expertise at typically the fraction of the cost of a full-time employee. You're avoiding the full-time hire liabilities. But and then in a tight labor market, this fractional concept is a beautiful thing. But listen, this is what we do at Crossroads Consulting. We look at companies from the very beginning of their life cycle all the way through to the exit strategy and all points in between. We try and bring experts to the table like you, Matt, that bring some valuable information that typically you have to pay for to get, but through these interviews, and I got to tell you, our launch of Tales of from the HR Crypt, we're getting some great feedback, and this is going to be a regular occurrence with us. And I know you have more stories, and we would love to get you back on, talk about more stories, promote your business, promote your services. Our link is below to our website. There's a lot of information there. If you have any comments or questions that you would like to submit, please do so. And we'll get some feedback from Matt on your questions or thoughts. Again, this is Crossroads Consulting. I'm Jeff. This is Billy. Stay tuned for more tales from the HR Crypt.
Thanks, guys.
Once again, we are Crossroads Consulting. I'm Jeff. He's Billy. We're available to talk to you about any issues that come up with regards to your business. Our business model is to help you find solutions. There's no cost, there's no obligation to talk to us. You've seen some of the interviews that we've done. We have a lot of resources that we can bring to the table. We welcome you the opportunity to talk to you about your business and some of the challenges that you're facing now. We'll do our best to find the solutions. Again, there's no cost, no obligation.